Okay, we are broadcasting, guys. So, welcome everyone. This is our seventh session of the Meteor Mentor Hangouts. Oh, Rico has joined in too. Wow, that's a surprise. Yeah, we have. Yeah, we weren't expecting you, so yeah, nice. All right then. Okay, so this is our seventh session. As you remember, our members are picking out topics to discuss every week. Apart from the things we discuss and share among each other on our Slack channel, we take the opportunity to, go more in depth into some of these topics on a Hangout session in a Q&A form, doing it live so that everyone can watch. And something new this week, we have decided to merge all of our groups into one, so that we can better manage the attendance, and we're going to try a few new things as well. For example, if anyone out there just wants to mentor someone else on a topic that they are already familiar with, they can do that. So we're trying to remove the distinction between a mentor and a mentee, because anyone can mentor anyone else as long as they feel confident in that area. And in fact, it's also a good opportunity to learn for oneself as well, because if there's a topic you want to talk about, you make damn sure you know about it. So you take some time beforehand to review and refresh your memory. So that helps a lot. And also getting in interesting questions and trying to answer them is also very encouraging to improve on your existing knowledge. Anyway, that being said, today's first topic is publications and subscriptions. Kayas has specifically asked about this topic, and guys, could you take a minute or two to explain us our use case and why you decided to ask about this, and what you are doing with your current app, and what you think needs to be improved in there?
All right, sure. I'm gonna share my screen. Yeah, can you see it now?
Yep.
All right. Basically, this is what the app looks like. Yeah. So there's two profiles, one on the left, one on the right. It's just a video I'm showing you. Yeah, and you can replace photo and whatnot. So obviously you have data coming in for all this, and I'm calling the data from here. You can see the router list, which is username. Instead of using router ID, I'm calling it like router username. And let me show you the code. Right, this is how in the client I'm calling the data. Find one using for the ID I'm using the username like that. Yeah. Yeah. This is okay. Yeah, and this is the router. Obviously, I don't router. I know you guys don't like reactivity in the router, and I don't like it either. But because it has been used already, I'm near launching time. I don't want to change it for this project. Next one is obviously the router. I've been beat by this reactivity in the router. But anyway, so this is I'm waiting on. I'm subscribing these two publications, and this is the server code. I'm publishing this. So as you can see, I'm publishing everything. It's like having auto from on from two collections. The thing is, whenever I try to put router current here, just like I did here, router current terms, I had various kinds of errors. I think that went into server-side routing, but I don't understand properly. But obviously, the thing is I couldn't use this router. I couldn't just get this username in the server, in the publication, in the server. In the publication, I use other things like this. It has worked out quite well, even user username. But yeah, I mean, whenever I'm in this page, right? Whenever I'm in this page, I need to I need to understand which user's page I'm on, and I get that from the router. I understand that from the router, and then I use this request to understand whose page I'm on. So I need to understand. I want to just publish his stuff, his data into that page and nothing else. But right now, I'm obviously serving everything.
Okay.
It's like having.
Okay. Well, thank you there for walking us through the current problem. Okay, you're no longer sharing your screen, so make yourself comfortable over there. Okay. No, you're not sharing your screen anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I took over. Okay. All right. Before going into specific detail about how we can solve your specific problem, let's back out a little bit and think about what publications are and what subscriptions are and what auto publish is and what happens when you remove it and what we mean by publishing data to the client. First of all, Meteor has this interesting and magical thing about having your data everywhere on the server and on the client, and you can work on your client as if you are on the server and vice versa, and make sure have the comfort of knowing that whatever you do with the data anywhere in your app, you are most probably, unless there's an error, going to end up with that applied everywhere, on the server and on other clients as well. Everything propagates. Part of that magic is this package called auto-publish, which gets into all Meteor apps by default when it's first created. And what it does is take all the data in your database and send it down to the client. All the connected clients. So that makes especially drawing out MVPs or small mockups or weekend projects a breeze, because you don't have to worry about how to get your data from the server to the client. But the thing is, you don't want that, because the amount of data on your server might be much bigger than the amount of data that you need on the client, and it may actually be too big for the client to handle. Besides, there may be security reasons. For example, you would not want to publish user profile information, for example, user addresses, email addresses, etc., to all the other users out there. Or for any other reason, you may want to keep things private to some users, or private to parts of your app. So the way to handle that, the way to control that is publications and subscriptions. A publication is a method for the server to tell any collected client what data it can have. And a subscription is a method, is a means for the client to tap into that data, exactly, to get that data. So the server says, hey, I have a list of users here. If you want it, you can get it. And the client says, okay, I know that there's a list of users and I do want it. Or in a more fine-grained approach, like in your case, the server can say, hey, here's a list of female users, if you want. And the client can say, all right, then I want the female users. But that quickly becomes hard to manage, because you cannot publish female users, male users, female users, older than 18 years of age, etc. It becomes too complex. So you start needing some means for the client to tell the server which specific parts of the data it wants, and the server can gather that and send that to the client. So the way to do that is for the server to accept parameters or arguments to its publication functions. Okay? So that means if you say you want to send down a list of users whose gender the client is going to decide themselves, you could take in a gender parameter and apply that onto your publications method that returns a cursor, which is meteor.users.find profile.gender equals the given parameter. So, by doing this, we have both on the control of what data the client is getting and how much data the client is getting. Furthermore, you could apply some more constraints to that kind of data. For example, we could tap into the user being logged in or not, so that when the user asks for all the female users out there, the server could check if there is a user session that has logged in actually or not. Depending on that information, the server can send the data or not send the data, or send only parts of the data. For example, not full user profiles, but just a certain pieces that you would like to, for example, display on a public homepage. Okay, so so security, the amount of data that the client can handle, and the amount, the exact data that you want on the client are three main concerns. Furthermore, there's this discussion about how scalable Meteor is. And that discussion is usually based on the server keeping track of which clients are connected and which parts of the data that specific client has asked for. That means even with a basic publication, if the amount of data sent to the client is too big, and the server has to keep track of that kind of data and the changes on that data, and there are like more than 100 users connected or more than 1,000 users connected, somewhere you start feeling that load on the server, because the server is keeping track of that information individually for each client. So basically, to also improve on the scalability or improve on the load that is being imposed on the server, what you want to do is try to both minimize the amount of data that you want to send, and also make sure the kind of data you are sending out there are basically not too different from each other, so that the server can tap into other mechanisms that try to improve its memory and CPU utilization. That's a kind of in-depth topic that we could get into later on. But basically, optimization is one of the reasons of handling publications and subscriptions in a more controlled structure. So then there's the reactivity side of things. Like in your case, you don't. This is not a request and response structure, so you don't say, here, I want the female users, and give me that, and forget about this. The thing is, when you ask for some data, and that asking, that subscription is based on a reactive data source, or a reactive computation, which is like a route parameter in your case, since you're using Pyron router, or any other reactive source there. For example, the user ID. Then that publication can get invalidated at any time, because the parameter it depends on can change at any time. And as soon as it changes, the server has to recalculate and resend, reinitialize that transfer of data in between. So putting that all together, when you are using auto-publish or an equivalent, but a declarative structure like you did, publish everything and subscribe to everything kind of structure, basically you are limiting yourself both in terms of scalability and security on the server side, and you are possibly imposing a huge CPU burden on the client. When the number of users grow and the number of documents that each client has to handle it, it's going to be hard on the client. You won't be able to send thousands of user profiles to a user to just sift around. So that all being said, by the way, let's take a small break here. Is there anything you would like to expand on? Is this clear up to this point?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else want me to repeat anything or Okay, cool. Well done. In your
I
specific use case, you had a problem. Okay, you are using Iron Router, and you have already said that you are crafting your subscriptions on the route level, and there are some problems. And let's explain first why that is a problem and how we can work around that. First of all, this whole router reactivity discussion, was a huge topic when Flow Router first appeared. And the thing is, Flow Router decided that the task of a router should only be routing. It doesn't have it should not be providing a data context to the page, to the templates, to the app. It should not be handling subscriptions. It should not be assuming the job of a controller in a typical MVC paradigm. But it should only be do routing. So what it should do is change the URL, make the application aware of that URL change, and that's it. And a way to provide you a means to adapt to the URL changes with layouts, which is a different package like Blaze layout or React layout, etc. So the main job of a router is let the app know what the URL is and provide basic means to create a layout. And then how do we subscribe to the data? Using templates. Because the idea is what displays a data is a template. So a template knows better what it needs in terms of data, so it can subscribe to its own data, to its own publications. So, and as soon as it gets destroyed, it's not in the view anymore, that subscription also gets destroyed. Therefore, the amount of load you're imposing on the client can be handled in a more predictive manner. On the contrary, if you're using the paradigms from Iron Router, and by the way, you can totally make Iron Router work like Flow Router, because reactivity is something by default on with Iron Router, but you can tell Iron Router to be not reactive with its subscriptions and data context management mechanisms. But it's kind of verbose to craft that in your code base. So Flow Router is much easier in that sense because of the lack of too many features. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is you are actually using Iron Router, you are actually subscribing on the route level, and what that means is anything that affects the URL or anything that gets affected by the URL have interdependencies. So in some cases, those interdependencies cause a rippling effect of invalidating all the subscriptions and then having to reconstruct them. So that causes too many subscription invalidations and resubscriptions or re-rendering of the pages, and they may happen unpredictably, so that at the time you're not expecting something like that. It just happens because somewhere on the page, due to something else, or somewhere not on the page even, somewhere on the server, some data that the URL depends on, or the URL places a dependency on, can change. That has nothing to do with the template in question, but still that causes a re-render. So these kind of rather unpredictable reactivity behaviors is the cause of all that discussion. And finally, the community has settled down on, okay, we don't want reactivity on the route level, we don't want data context on the route level, we're going to handle them in our templates. In fact, the React paradigms also suggest that kind of solution to the same problems. Anyway, But that does not mean that in either case the URL information is not reactive. Both flow router and iron router allow you to create reactive dependencies on the URL itself. So a URL change is reactively propagated to the application, which you are trying to use for subscriptions now. So in your case, I think you have two problems. First of all, you said that you were not able to create that dependency and you had some errors. Well, the errors were due to the data not being readily available in your case. Could you share your screen again, because I want to
Yes, sure.
show the exact problem there.
The thing is, the errors I was having, yeah, and I was able to solve them. So right now I don't have any kind of errors. It's just my problem right now is just I'm publishing everything.
Yeah, I know. Okay,
yeah.
Hold on. Just please get back to your subscription.
Publish? No, that's just publishing. I'm just publishing everything.
Yeah. Could you switch back to the other file? The subscription.
Subscription? Yeah. This is the subscription.
Oh, not this one. The one where you depend on the current route.
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
So once
this is not a subscription, but this is just a data context. I know. The thing here is,
I'm waiting on this data, and make you subscribe. I'm subscribing here,
okay.
And I'm feeding one data over here in the data part, and you see there's two subscriptions. So one is the user, and one is this one.
Okay.
And I'm saying, okay, I want this data, just his data, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the browser console, I get everybody's data because I'm obviously subscribing everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm publishing everything, and I'm subscribing to everything. So even if I say, okay, I just want this person's data, I'm getting like everyone's data in the console. So I think over here, I can say, okay, I want only this user's data somewhere around here in subscription over here,
okay, yes.
or publish it over here.
Okay, we are going to do that, guys. But could you please first switch over to your template code there?
Yeah.
The one with okay, this one. Okay, hold on. I want to discuss this first, okay? Because there is actually a slight gotcha here that can may or may not affect you due to data availability.
Yeah.
You have router.current.param.username here. All right.
Yeah.
But the thing is that complete thing might not always be available here.
Okay.
First of all, this is a tied-in dependency, and you see, you may, for example, have a route with a username missing there, for example.
Yeah.
And if you want to use the show template somewhere else in your application, you might first have to handle that case. So this is.
So are you saying like, okay, I should use like when the template is rendered or uncreated, I should use some kind of auto run function to there?
Yeah, you could either use that, or since the helper is itself a reactive context, you could take router.current.params.username and make that a variable on its own. Check that if it exists, and use it if it exists. If it does not exist, you could just return something else. Like you could just return something empty, an empty object, or you could find you could just return an empty object. So that would be a safeguarding mechanism. Okay.
Okay. Do I need to use like subscription is ready in the HTML in the Blaze template, or is it just having an auto run here in this helper function will do, or do I need both?
Well,
like when I say I mean when I say okay, hey, in the helper function I have this auto run and it's checking whether it's available or not, and if it's available, it's gonna if it's not available, it's gonna rerun, like invalidate the computation and rerun it, everything.
Well, not exactly. The potential problem you have here just because you are using iron router, is that router current is a reactive context, and that reactive context can change, and there may be times where you do not have username available there. So that router.current.params, the username is actually undefined.
Undefined, yeah.
You see,
could
this
happen.
is exactly a problem. But Meteor users.find, where username is undefined, will return you undefined, and then you will have to search for be.find one created by undefined. That's not exactly a problem. This will not throw you an error because it will still return undefined, and you will not the whole details DB helper will be returning undefined. But still, if you wanted to introduce some other information that's based on these, you may end up in a case where that undefined comes and bites you. That's why I wanted you to take a look at this first. Okay, this is not directly a problem with this use case, but it's a potential problem for another use case where you depend on the username information.
Right.
Okay, so please, you can also
yeah, I mean, I was thinking like, because I'm waiting on for the data, that's why this won't happen. I mean, this hasn't happened so far, but yeah, that's a valid point you have. I mean, I thought that it might happen, but because this hasn't happened, I mean, I didn't take the precautions, like so because I was waiting. I thought like, okay, wait on here, your template is not going to render unless they have the data, right? So,
yeah. Well,
that's
okay. So another thing I'd like to say is, you should design your application in such a way that the application behaves when the data that you want is not available there. So wait on, for example, is something you depend on, but you actually want to craft an app that does not have such a dependency, such that, for example, if the data is not there, the template can show something else. It can show a loading, for example, animation. It can show a temporary placeholder or anything else, or a not found, anything. But still, you do want to make sure that if the data is not there, the template does not crash. Okay? So wait on is not something you really want to rely too much on, because first of all, the wait on structure with the on Iron Router creates a user experience that feels like laggy, okay? Because it has to know that the subscription is ready first, and then provide the data context, and then render the layout. In that time frame in between, you are probably showing a loading animation somewhere. Okay, so in the case that your publication has not finished sending down all the data, then the UI will feel laggy. So in order to handle that, perhaps you should minimize your dependencies on data. So that was another point. Now coming to subscribing to specific data. Okay, for example, on this route, you want to find users with username that's okay. So we want to actually subscribe to that data only, right? We don't want to subscribe to all users. Okay, let's just do that. Let's just do that. Let's just allow the user's publication to take in a username parameter. Okay.
But by the way, this is not my dev console, so I don't have like it's a Windows one, so I don't have everything ready.
Okay, no problem, no problem. We're not going to code and complete the app. We're just going to talk about what we need to do. So, okay. Could you get back to your publication code?
Oh, publication is yeah.
Okay, so all right now.
I mean, I couldn't use the current the router parameter here to find to specify the user. That was my main problem. I mean, I'm over here. Let's say I have I have like two publications here, which is like finding males or females depending on who is the user.
Oh, okay. Let's change that. Let's change that. Okay, let's just change this code. Let's make a publication that has the name find gender, for example, and that takes the gender parameter.
Okay.
And sends down the data depending on which gender is requested. Okay.
So that will be like having function parameter here, gender, and
yeah, exactly.
gender, right?
Exactly. But there are two things you have to make sure there. First, you have to make sure that the gender parameter that is sent to your publication is a string.
Yeah.
And either male or female. Okay? Because otherwise, that's a security problem you're at. For example, instead of the gender information, I could have sent a specially crafted object such that I get back all the profiles, etc. So yeah, you want to limit the use of those parameters to whatever you are expecting them to be. Okay? Okay, so the way to do that is, for example, using the check package.
Yeah.
It's really straightforward. You just do check gender string. That's it, and it's not a string.
I mean, I was using them over here, users, and I was trying to say, okay, take the router parameter, and I was trying to check it as a string, and he was giving me error.
Okay, hold on. Take the router parameter there is not a valid solution.
Okay.
You don't get router parameters from your publications because route parameters are on the client. The server does not know about them unless you are, making a server-side router, and which in this case you are not. Your router is on the client side. So this is a main paradigm shift in terms of client-server apps and an app like Meteor. On client-server apps, the router endpoints are responded by the server itself. So your server code knows about the routes. But in Meteor, using Iron Router or Flow Router, unless you are specifically creating server-side routes, the server does not know about the route information. Such that you cannot do profile.gender this.router.something or routes.params.something. You cannot do that. You have to use the parameter provided to the function. See?
So what parameter to do what?
You have to use the parameters, the arguments that you provide to your function. So in this case, you could say find gender function in parentheses gender.
Yeah.
And then you should say users find profile.gender equals gender.
Gender, right.
And now there's another question. If the publish function accepts a parameter there, an argument there, how do you send that parameter from the client to the publication? So that's something you do on your subscription.
Yeah, I mean here, obviously.
Yes, instead, users, Meteor subscribe accepts first the publication name, and then it accepts parameters, arguments. So you could say meteor.subscribe, open parentheses, users, comma, something, for example, male or female, or this params.gender or something else.
Right.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering about, at this point, when you're sending in a parameter, should that just be field specific to the collection? And should you never go any more than that? I mean, for this case, we're looking at the field of gender, and it's argument specific. And so then for maybe like the next profile part, have a new publish that is not gender, but it's for a new field, right? So we're making publishes for essentially field in our collection, or is that just sort of like too basic of a way of doing things? Is there a more advanced way of you know, sending in arguments that both look for like the fields and values? I'm just trying to figure out, I guess, you know, how we like what is a more advanced way of doing it? Because at this time, I'm just sending in an argument per field that then checks like male or female or age is older or younger and whatnot.
Okay. Well, well, since this basically is JavaScript, and functions can accept anything and return anything, you could, in theory, make a general overall publication that takes in an argument, for example, like collection name and a field name and a field value constraint, and using those arguments craft a cursor, craft a find statement, and then send it back. So this is perfectly valid, but that's open to lots of security issues, or you know, otherwise it's too generic. Instead, in fact, I think there are a couple of packages out there that allows you to do just that in an easier manner. For example, Sasha Graph actually has one package called. Let me pull that out for you. It was called Smart Publish or something. Okay, somebody actually should search that and paste the link on Slack. Sasha Graph has a package for smart publications, which is basically there is no publication setup. The client asks for some data using a utility function that the package provides, and using that information, the server side crafts a publication. Since this is all JavaScript, you can do anything actually. But the thing is, the best practices there is naming your publications, restricting them to whatever you want them to publish. Because if you provide that kind of flexibility to your client, any client, for example, some evil person could use that information to pull in any information they want. So you use this mechanism, for example, to publish specific subsets of users. An evil client could say, "Hey, well, this is too generic. Let's use this to get all the data and all the secrets, etc." So you see, the more specific what you publish gets, the better it gets in terms of security, at least. And you also know how it works. It's easier to debug. It's easier to predict what the client is going to end up with. So to answer your question, yeah, there are much more advanced ways in using publications, but advanced does not always mean better. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it definitely does. I was just, coming at it from a beginner's perspective, where, this is the data I wanted, so I wanted a simple publish to it, and it was coming back and it seems fine. But as I continue my progression through this, it always seems like there's a more advanced way to do things, and sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not. But in this case, I guess just keeping it simple is definitely the way to go. I wanted to make sure I wasn't getting too far in. Going down this method, then having to rewrite a bunch of things later on.
Okay. So, well then, yeah. The idea is you could keep it simple, and it will eventually pay out. And eventually, when your app, as much as your app grows, you will find better patterns that are specific to that application that you will find better to apply, perhaps. I personally have different applications where I take different approaches to data management. But the more standard way is actually this. So coming back to Kayas's example there, the last problem was taking in the route parameter and placing it, handing it back to the publication so that the publication knows what the client wants. And his basic mistake there was was trying to access the route parameter from the server itself. But that's something you won't be able to do. That's something that the client has to do using the subscription mechanism, such that you subscribe. Could you share that code again, please? I'll hand the screen over to you. Yeah, in this case, he would have written something like meteor.subscribe users, comma, female, for example, to get the female users. Or if the gender was a route parameter, so let's say it's a gender route, like list dot colon gender, he would have used something like, what is this? Oh, this is the publication code. We would. Guys, could you show us where you are exactly using the that publication, where you are subscribing to it? Where is the corresponding subscription to find mails, for example? Interesting magician effect.
Right. So I'm saying, okay, I'm publishing either this is actually in a list. I subscribe them in a list where I show them, if the user is a male, I show them the list of the females, and if the user is a female, I show them the list of a male. So here I'm publishing the list of all the males, and on the publishing all the females. So here, let me see. Yeah, this is where I this is the list. Yeah.
Okay.
This is the list, and I check on before action, like, okay, whether this is, I do this for some other thing, like whether they have filled up the form and they have a database or not. But here I'm just waiting on them, waiting on those two subscriptions, both of them, and I change them in the, let me see. I show them in the template helper.
Okay.
Of the list function. Yeah.
Okay. Here's another pointer here, Kayas. You see,
there you go.
Okay, you are subscribing to
both of them. Yeah.
Male users and female users.
Yeah.
If your application does not have any other genders, if you only have female and male users, and all the users need to be either male or female, then what's the point on creating two different publications there? You could have just as easily published all the users and just that, and subscribe to just that. Because since you have that subscription set up, you don't have to subscribe to that again. You could just reuse the current subscriptions data, which you reuse the data that is provided to you by the current subscription, and just change your template helpers, or just change your template's data context. Because the data that is available to the client can be is usually a superset of what a specific template requires. For example, you could have two lists on your single page, list of females on one side and list of male users on the other side. And to have that, you don't have to subscribe to male and female separately. You could just as easily subscribe to all the users, and then in your templates helper, in your templates data context, provide female users to one side and male users to one side, just using the query that you use in your helper. Is that clear to you?
Well, I have this one question. Like, when I publish something, what does it depend on? Does it depend on the subscription, what I define in the subscription, or does it depend on what I define here in the helper?
Okay. What you
I mean, I don't want to, like, I don't want to boggle down my user with all the data. So I'm just trying to limit the amount of data the user receives. So why do I limit the data? Like, do I limit the data in the subscription, or do I limit the data in the publish function itself, or do I limit it using in the helper function?
Okay.
That's something I'm a bit confused about.
The helper function does not limit anything. The helper function limits only the data available to a specific template. But still, the overall data is there on the client. It's not in the template, but it is in the client, in the browser. Okay, it's on Mini Mongo. In order to limit the amount of data that is on Mini Mongo, what you need to is limit the amount of data on the server side, on your publication.
On the subscription publication,
On the publication, the subscription is just a basic mechanism for your client to tell the server, hey, I want that publication. That's it. It's just a method to say, I want the data. But what prepares and sends the data is the publication itself. And in the previous case, like we discussed, you can craft a publication in such a way that instead of .find and send everything, accept an argument. For example, in this user's argument, you could use the argument as a username, for example. You could say meteor.users.find profile.username equals to argument. Okay? So by doing that, this publication would actually publish one single user. See, instead of sending hundreds of users, you send only one user. Why you might want to need that? For example, you might want to use a publication like this on profile pages.
I understand. Okay.
And then okay.
I mean, I tried this with username. I mean, I put like username in the argument as a parameter of the function, and then I was trying to like, hey, Meteor users find profile dot username, no, not profile dot username, like username, and then saying, hey, passing the argument. And when I was checking it, like check username string, it was giving me some error. But I'll try now, because I'll let you know what happens. Okay, so that's the standard method basically.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know what went wrong there, but this should basically work. If there's another area, you please do share some code with us, on the Slack channel, and let's work on it together. Okay?
All right.
All right. And I'd like to take a moment to discuss one more thing about publications and limiting the amount of data you send. You see, in these cases, we were discussing how to limit the amount of documents that we are sending to the client. But we haven't talked about what parts of the document that we send. For example, we are publishing all the users here. We are probably publishing everything that the user document contains in there.
That's true.
We are publishing.
I can see everything in the console.
We are actually publishing the passwords of those users, their credentials, their login tokens. If they have connected their, like for example, Google or Facebook accounts, we are publishing their tokens there as well. And we are publishing all their secret profile information. So instead, we could have used the fields argument to our collection find statements. I'll just okay. Come on, guys.
What hold is বাইরে কত hold?
Okay. So there's an option called fields, and that option, it doesn't have a direct link from the Meteor docs, but there are like 70 references to the fields option.
I've just sent a link. I've just sent a link to the guide, which explains about using fields.
Oh, okay, that's great. That's great.
In the chat window.
Could you send that down using the Slack channel, please, Rob?
I will do that.
Okay, thanks a lot. So the idea about fields is to limit what parts of a document that you are publishing. Normally, if you just publish a collection.find and .find or something with a restriction on it, you still publish the complete document that that find actually fetches. So instead of doing that, you could say, if, for example, on the client you just want to print user's first name and last name and the age, for example. What else do you need there? Nothing else. So that you should then publish using users.find blah blah blah, comma, providing an options object there, fields, first name, last name, age, etc. See?
All right,
so
I understand.
So that way, you both secure the information that you don't want to send to everybody. Also, you limit the amount of information again. For example, if each document contained like 100 properties, 100 keys on them, and you only needed 2. So you see that would make a huge difference there. So using the fields property is very important. In fact, you should definitely make a habit of using that in all of your publications. In fact, you should also make a habit of using that in your template helpers as well, because reactivity also does depend on that. So, for example, Meteor's new data layer, Apollo, if you have watched the transmission episode last night, it was awesome. It talked about, it took about an hour to talk about the upcoming data layer of Meteor. GraphQL works by explicitly defining what the client needs. And that translates to the current Meteor mechanisms in terms of using the fields arguments. So you should definitely make a habit of using that so that you know what your publications or what your cursors return anywhere, either on the server or on the client, and then you have better control of managing your data. All right. Okay, so well, we took like almost an hour discussing this, and I think I'm satisfied about what we've discussed so far. And if you guys have any question regarding this, let's take it. Otherwise, let's take at least a few moments discussing another topic if you have a question. Anyone?
I have one question. I don't know how much is related to that. I found a video on the YouTube where Handsoft make a Meteor app, and they were talking about scalability and how they solve some problem. Now I'm uploading a file in the Slack channel.
Okay.
Okay.
I've seen it actually. It's quite awesome how they do it. The render.
Yes, but it wasn't. It's quite clear what they're doing, but I was wondering real application, how we can do it in a real project.
Okay. Well, this is a standard and major pain point in Meteor applications. If you remember, we talked about one aspect of limiting publications to relevant data is actually improving on scalability, improving on the amount of connections and data and dependencies that the server can keep track of. In this case, this is a basic representation of how Meteor handles each user and their dependencies on the state of the data. With Meteor, every user is connected, and any data, any subscription that they have started gets tracked by the server. And when some part of that data changes, and when multiple users are connected to that dependency, they all have to be merged, invalidated, diffed against the current state of the data, and then that has to propagate to all of them. So This diagram actually does a good job explaining how big of a problem this may become. There are some ways of mitigating this. For example, one really obvious way would be to make parts of your app that don't have to be reactive, non-reactive. One easy way of doing that would be to use a method, just like an API call. Get me the list of these users, and when you are using a method, it gets run only once. It doesn't create a tracker dependency on the server side data. So you could get the list of users, and if the list of users don't change that much, and you could use it throughout the app. So it doesn't create that kind of dependency there. Another way would be to use the non-reactive options on your queries, and that's kind of harder to achieve because the inner workings of a publication is based on being reactive. So that kind of, we have actually discussed this before. It's kind of hard to craft and make sure your publication is non-reactive, but it's doable. Another option would be to disable oplog usage. Meteor uses oplog to tail all the changes and uses that to propagate the changes to all its data dependencies. Instead of using the oplog observed driver, you remove that and you switch to database polling. And that's not always something you want, but in high scalability cases, it may perform better depending on your use case. In fact, Rob has shared some of his experience on this exact matter. We have actually discussed both WebSockets and the server-side oplog tailoring feats of reactivity and data tracking. Do you remember that, Rob? A few sessions back?
Was I on that session?
Yeah, actually. Yeah, you actually shared with us the
Did I? Oh, cool.
okay. Well,
I remember.
Anyway,
I remember. There was a blog post about this as well.
Yeah.
Can't remember who wrote that, but we discussed about oplog tailing and non-reactive action.
Yeah.
And you showed us what in the document it was.
Mm-hmm. In its current state, Meteor is not bad with scalability, by the way. Let's note that down, because if you have watched, for example, the previous Meteor Night, the Classcraft presentation, they are fine with handling hundreds of thousands of users and tens of thousands of users connected at the same time. They are on Galaxy, obviously, but they have been, using their own on-premises deployments, but they have been scaling well. The thing is, especially this publication mechanism is really important on how well your application is going to scale. Some applications are reported to handle only about 100 users, for example, on a single instance. But some of them report even higher, and some of them actually get bogged down with 10 users or such. If you want to, create a dependency on all your users, like publication, publishing, everything, yeah, that's going to be hard on your server, because for each connected user, Meteor is going to store a snapshot of what your client is expecting as data and as it changes. So limiting down publications is a good way to tackle scalability and handling high load. But as with this Handsoft example, Rico, yes, it is a valid concern. It is a valid concern, especially if you are changing lots of data in bulk. Because, for example, if you create a dependency on your users collection, and then let's say you have a task that runs every hour and changes something on the users collection for all the users. That means all of those users documents have changed and they have to be sent down to each client the changes should be sent to each client. And that kind of change that is done in bulk usually consists the rather hard to solve parts of scalability in Meteor. That's why disabling upload tailing is sometimes suggested as a solution in such cases. There are other solutions like separating some parts of your database and using those as external data sources, especially with data that you don't need reactively in particular. The good news is Meteor, with its new data layer, although it is designed as a reactive GraphQL layer, reactivity is going to be an option, not something you get by default. So maybe you want to read the docs, the official docs with the non-reactive options, and how to or start using methods for delivering some of the rather static data to the clients, and make that a habit and try to use reactivity as a feature in your app, because not too far away from today, it's like in 6 to 12 months at most, you are actually going to be using that non-reactive paradigm and sprinkle reactivity in your apps. So it might be a good time to at least start thinking like that.
Yes, I see that it will be a great improvement. Anyway, I'm wondering, when they say we split users into channels, how they isolate these channels. This is something that I didn't understand from the. I understand the concept, but I'm wondering how they split in the code.
Oh, okay. Well, I think they have done something external there. If I don't know what they specifically did, because I remember reading the article, but I remember reading a few articles on this topic, and some of them involved hacking Meteor, changing its publication code. I don't know if these guys are one of them, but the first thing that comes to mind is publishing data that is relevant to a user. Splitting by channel would naturally mean find user belonging to this channel. But apart from that, I think what they have done is a little bit more novel in terms of changing some of the inner workings of Meteor. I'm not sure if that's the article. If you can share that article specifically, you could discuss it on Slack, and I could tell you about how they have achieved it or what they have exactly done to achieve that effect. But that's a really huge topic. We could discuss that in private there. But apart from that, the basic thing, I mean, the thing you could do is what we have actually discussed with Kayas's case. The channel, for example, translating to gender in our case there. But that's only that solves only part of the problem in some use cases, and other use cases may require other solutions like disabling upload or changing a parameter with upload tailing about how many documents in bulk must have been changed at a time. There's an option with upload tailing to fine-tune that. And some other options would be to, switching out parts of the application to external databases, which you don't track using an upload tailer. Instead, you just query and then get the data in. And that might actually be the solution that they have come up with. That was one of the articles I've read about. Another one involved, actually, as I told you, hacking Meteor internals. If that's the one, I just suggest against it at this stage, if you don't specifically have that as a requirement. But yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, it's over an hour now. Maybe just a few minutes to quickly cover something else, or we could say we're done for today. Okay, then. I think that's it. All right, guys.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys for this. This was a great one. I mean, if you left me here, I could have talked all day long about this. I love this publication thing. So, okay. Have a great weekend. Take care. See you on Slack. Okay. Bye bye.
Thanks,
Cheers.
bye.